Welcome to another edition of Answers for the Family. I'm your host, Alan Cardoza. With me once again is Marvin Smith. Now, besides being a former co-host of this show, Marvin played in the NFL for the Los Angeles Rams and the Oakland Raiders. He is also an ordained minister, former principal of a California charter school, and very active in charities that involve helping people all over the world, making him a great fit to co-host today's show. Now, each week, this show will address many ways of creating greater health, joy, and love for you and your family. Now, we will introduce you to top professionals and talented authors who are working to make this world a better place for all of us. Now, I'd really appreciate if you could all do me a big favor. Please forward at least one of our shows to your social media group and to someone you know who can benefit from today's show. This is one powerful way that we make a positive difference together. Now, before we get to our guest, I want you to know that I am grateful to all of you that take your precious time to listen to or watch this show, and especially those that send in questions, comments, reviews, and suggestions. Remember, this show exists for you. Now, if you haven't gotten a free copy of the Attitude of Gratitude Journal yet, please go to our website at answersforthefamily.com and download a copy. Give it 21 days and comment on whatever platform you listen to us on, what focusing on gratitude has meant for you and your family. Now, a quote, although not from the journal, it's by Thomas Paine. Spiritual freedom is the root of political liberty, as the union between spiritual freedom and political liberty seems nearly inseparable. It is our duty to defend both of them.
You know, the show will soon be called Answer Network. And I'm going to flip the script on my good buddy here, Mr. Alan Cardoza. You know, he's not only the founder of the show, but he began, I believe it was like 12, 13 years ago. And this is interesting. He's the finder of answers that only an international detective with a heart for helping people could do. I hear Alan each week acknowledging the wonderful things his guests are doing. However, I gotta say this because I'm flipping the script. I want to acknowledge the wonderful and selfless things that he does with the show and helping families in need. I mean, whether it's like locating and rescuing a 14-year-old teen, a girl in human trafficking, or reuniting a parentally abducted child. With this show, he and his producer, Jan, who does a phenomenal job, seeking out people and topics that can make a positive difference in this world. One of the reasons they keep having me come back, because I think they think I make a difference, but we're not going to say anything. So all kidding aside, so please forward this show to your social media groups and ask them to do the same. Let's do something. Let's make this show, the new show, go viral.
Well, Marvin, thank you for the kind words, but also thank you for the dedication that you make in making this world a better place, because you do. And if anybody's listening to the show, they know that we go back probably 30 years, and you never cease to amaze me. So, see, now he's doing this because it kind of gives away our age. So anyway, but our guest today also makes a positive difference in the world. Each year, the President of the United States declares January 16th to be Religious Freedom Day and calls upon Americans to observe this day through appropriate events and activities in homes, schools, and places of worship. It is the anniversary of the passage in 1786 of the Virginia Statute on religious freedom. Now, our guest, Eric Buehrer, was a public school teacher before founding Gateways to Better Education. He is a published author and nationally recognized authority on the subject of religion and public education. His approach is unique as it emphasizes camaraderie, not conflict, and reason, not rage. Gateways to Better Education is a nonprofit organization founded in 1991 to help public school educators, parents, and school leaders teach about the important contribution the Bible, Christianity, and religious freedom makes to the world. Gateway shows how to do this legally and appropriately within existing constitutional boundaries, current laws, and state academic standards. Gateways also empowers parents with tools to navigate the public schools so their children graduate with their faith and values stronger and intact. Gateways guide school leaders in establishing policies and practices that protect academic and religious freedom. Eric, welcome to Answers for the Family.
Well, thank you so much. Good to be with both of you.
Well, Eric, I really appreciated the opportunity to meet you when I did. I love what you're doing, but before we talk too much about Religious Freedom Day, share what motivated you to go from public school teacher to founder of Gateways to Better Education.
Well, I was concerned about what I saw happening in my profession and in the country at large. This was back in the kind of the Reagan Revolution days when conservatives were getting back into the public square. And so I initially got involved with helping people win school board races, getting conservatives on school boards. And I did that for about 5 years. But my teacher's heart kept wanting to figure out, how can we change the culture in the classroom? Well, how can we change the way schools function, not just at the top level with policy, but actually in classrooms? And so my wife and I founded Gateways to Better Education with the idea that the individuals involved are the gateways to better education. So it's the parents, the teachers, the administrators, the superintendents, school board members. It's how do we help them become gateways to better education? And there are so many opportunities out there that people just don't know. And so we simply pull back the curtain and say, all this time you thought you couldn't do these things, you couldn't teach these things because the law said you couldn't. That actually isn't true. Here's what your state academic standards say. Here's what the state laws actually say. And as people understand that they can teach about the Bible, they can teach about Christianity and its impact in the world, and that they do have religious freedom, as I like to say, it sets the captives free, and it really creates a different environment in the classroom and in the school.
So Eric, tell us about your experience in the Oval Office last January.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. Right before COVID, we had been lobbying for 3 years, nearly 3 years, for the Department of Education to update and reissue its guidance on students' religious liberties. Since 1995, under the Clinton administration, the Department of Education has developed guidance on what students' religious freedoms are. And they're supposed to be updated every 2 years. They hadn't been updated since 2003. And so we reached out and pointed this out to the Department of Education. The attorneys later told us, that's what got our attention, because we're here to avoid lawsuits, and we saw that we were not complying with the law. The law requires us to update it every 2 years. And so they acted on that, and they did it. And we gave them recommendations for the various things that we thought they needed to put in. And to our delight, they did. And then I was invited to come back to the White House for the announcement of the new guidance. Excuse me. And so January 16th of last year, we were in the we're in the White House, in the Oval Office, with President Trump, Secretary DeVos, and others. We had parents and their children who were examples of various religions, Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, who had been discriminated against because of their faith in their classroom. And so they were all giving their examples. And then I had an opportunity to shake hands with the president and thank him, and thank Secretary DeVos for her commitment to reissuing this guidance. And so now the task is getting this out to every school and every community so that everybody understands what students' religious freedoms really are in the classroom.
So what are some examples of students' religious freedoms that are being denied at schools now?
Well, we just had a situation come up earlier where the wearing masks, of course, now schools are having students wear masks to school. And this one school in Mississippi had, you could wear masks that had a saying on it. So you had some putting on Black Lives Matters, you had some putting on their sports teams. And this third grade girl, she wanted to say, "Jesus loves me." And the principal said, "You can't do that. That's religious. You got to take that off." And of all places, Mississippi. You'd think that's like the Bible Belt. That's
Bible Belt.
Yeah. And then not only that, but when the mom reached out to the school administrator and said, wait a second, you have no policy that says you can't have a religious message on your mask. The principal actually went back and changed the policy to add, you can't have religious messages on your mask. So now Alliance Defending Freedom got involved with the case and is representing the mom and the child. But the sad thing is, this is exactly what the Department of Education's guidance, in fact, they've got a statement in there that says, if you are allowed to wear religious clothing, if your school allows other clothing with messages on it. So if you want to, if it says your favorite sports team or any kind of t-shirt with a message on it, they can't deny you from wearing that t-shirt or that mask that has a religious message on it, because then it's specifically discriminating against religion. So that's just one example. But we've got others where, kids bring candy canes for Christmas to their classmates and they have a little message on it, maybe John 3:16 or something on the candy cane. And we've had situations where the teacher rips the Bible verse off the candy cane and gives it back to the student and says, okay, now you can give these out to your classmates. Again, just blatant religious discrimination. We had a situation here in LA, we've got a lot of brush fires in LA, and a high school English teacher gave the assignment to her students, write a personal essay about how you felt as you watched that fire on TV that was near their school and near their community. And this passionate Christian girl wrote about how it reminded her of that Bible verse about God being a consuming fire. And she wrote about her burning passion for Christ. The teacher refused to even grade the paper because she dared to mention God. It took a meeting between the parent, the teacher, the student, and the school administrator, until the teacher cheerfully said, okay, well, now I'll allow it, but now I've got to change everything so this never happens again. It's like, what? So you mean a student doesn't take you up on your assignment, which was write a personal essay about how you felt as you watched this on TV. But because she dared to mention God, now you're going to change the whole assignment. So we just have this idea that somehow you can't do all this stuff in a school, and it's just not true.
Well, and go ahead, Marvin.
Yeah, it's interesting, Eric, because I'm familiar with those stories, those cases. And it's interesting because 2 points that, first of all, when I think about our public education system today and teachers that are being trained coming out of the university institutions, I mean, this is information that they're so far removed from now.
Yeah.
And which is sad. And it goes to show kind of a shift in what's kind of being dictated down to the classroom. And unfortunately, I start to look at teachers and administrators more as bullies against kids. And so, and on them parents, because they don't understand the law. And what does the word of God say? My people perish for lack of knowledge. Yeah. People perish without knowing the truths. So, I mean, what you guys are doing, I think it's paramount because they got to be educated. They got to know to be able to fight for what's right. I'm reminded when I was a kid, this was not long ago, but we used to have a trailer. I don't know if you guys remember, once a week, we could go out to the trailer for religious studies. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those kids, right? And I said, well, what happened to the trailer? What happened to those programs? And it seemed like, they just start pushing away.
Yeah, they actually, by law, they can still do that. And in many communities, they do. It's called religious release time.
Yes, there we are.
A student can be released from school during school hours, go off campus, and often they'd go to a trailer that's parked on the street off of the campus, have their religious training, and come back on campus and not be counted absent during the day. It's not after school. And that's in about 40 states around the country. But yeah, you're so right. Many people think that can't be done, but it actually can be done. And it's been supported by the Supreme Court, and it's in laws all across the country.
Yeah. Well, the sad part about that, even where I've seen instances where it is, they understand that and they give those privileges. But then when the kid, which has been removed out of the classroom, comes back, then the ridicule, then all the other issues, I call them the more covert attack on the kid is prevalent. And it's almost like, I don't want to go because of the issues I'm going to deal with my peers because teachers are saying things.
Well, and that's where, we've, since the White House experience and the release of the new guidance on students' religious freedoms, we've launched the National Free to Speak campaign. And not only do we want to get students to understand and teachers to understand what their religious freedoms are, but we also want, and this gets to your point, we want everyone to value the importance of religious freedom. Religious freedom isn't good just because it's in the First Amendment. It's in the First Amendment because it's good. And so our program teaches students as well as the adults, because many of them don't realize the value of religious freedom on society, even for people who aren't religious. There are three basic things. One is religion does tremendous good in a community. People are motivated by their religious faith to do good works, to have charities and orphanages and homeless shelters and all kinds of things for their communities. And so it just is a social benefit to a community to allow religion to flourish.
And hey, Eric, and real quick, not to cut you off, but adding to that, there's all kinds of statistics that even prove that point, what you're sharing.
Absolutely. In fact, I've seen research that showed that religious organizations and their charitable work around the country contribute the equivalent of over $1 trillion to the economy in terms of the services that they provide. The other thing is that it promotes diversity. The very thing that our liberal friends want to promote, diversity, this is what religious freedom does, because it says you don't have to be the same. You can be different. And so it allows and promotes diversity. But the second thing is that it also puts limits on government. We want students to understand that religious freedom not only has this practical social benefit, but it also has the legal benefit of saying the government recognizes it does not have final authority on people's lives, that people answer to something higher than the government. That's why tyrannical governments around the world, one of the first things they do is they take away religious freedom, because they don't want anybody answering to anything higher than the government. And so it puts a limit on what government, the realm that government can work in. And then the third thing is we want students to understand that it is a fundamental human right. It has to do with part of being human is having a conscience, an inner sense of what is right and wrong and what I need to be doing and not doing. And when you force somebody to violate that conscience, then you're really diminishing them, treating them less than human. It's a human right. That's why, for instance, we have conscientious objector laws, where if my religious faith says I cannot go out into battle and kill someone, okay, you can be a conscientious objector and we will put you to work in some area that does not have you out on the field killing people. And that kind of conscientious objector clause is, again, treating someone as fully human, that they aren't just an animal that you can tell what to do. And so we want students to understand those important things, and we want faculty to understand that too. So then, to your point, when students do exercise their religious freedom, go off campus, have religious services, and come back on campus, they're respected, they're affirmed. Everybody understands religious freedom is a value that adds to our society rather than some odd thing that takes away from it.
Well, this is really good, because being actively in the environment and in that space, and for clarity, so our viewers and listeners understand, when we talk about religious freedom, we're not just talking about religious freedom for a particular religion. We're talking about religious freedom for all religions, whether right or wrong, because who's to judge? The reality is that it's a human right, and realistically, if I want to worship a rock, if that's what I want as my religion, then that's my right. That's my human right. And I shouldn't be demonized. I shouldn't be ridiculed. I shouldn't be imprisoned because that's what I believe. And I think it goes back to exactly what you're saying about having that liberty and not, this whole thing we talk about, we'll all hear the separation between church and state and how that's a misnomer. And, and I always say that, education is not just fundamental, traditional, but education on, the things that we're talking about, religious freedoms. And I've had, actively today, I'm honored to get this chance to work with Ambassador Sam Brownback on religious freedom. And basically, it's kind of interesting because we were talking not long ago, And he says, Marvin, I have the ability to really do some really new, unique work throughout the world on religious freedom, but I have no rights in my own country. To really for religious freedom, that's for someone else's, job. But it's just interesting because I'm in these same conversations. I'm hearing about what's going on the global, from a global standpoint, and had a chance to visit some other countries and with the ambassador. And it's just amazing that when this is such a fundamental human right, and you take that away, and tyranny becomes, at the forefront.
Yeah.
So I just want to commend you on the work you're doing.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Now, we have a listener comment that has come in. And again, I want to thank those that take the time to do this. We really appreciate it. We do this show for you, so we will always do everything we can to get to these and to get them answered, or to get our guests to hear them. This one reads, I have worked at the courthouse in Los Angeles County for 20 years. My friend and I were standing in the hallway sharing our plans for the holidays. I said that I hoped she would have a Merry Christmas with her family. No sooner had the words left my mouth that this woman comes running up to us, interrupts our conversation, and begins lecturing me about how inappropriate my behavior was for saying Merry Christmas in a public building. I started laughing, and the next thing I know, she was then yelling at me like a crazy person. This event was a wake-up call for me, because between the election, COVID, media censorship, I'm waking up, and I know I'm not alone. We can finally see the truth that our cherished freedoms, including religious, are very much in danger. I have a huge email list and sizable social media following, so you can count on me to spread the word about Religious Freedom Day. And this is from Carrie Ann in Los Angeles.
Ah, that's wonderful. Yeah, that is a challenge. And, on November 19th, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito gave a speech to a convention of attorneys. It was a virtual speech. And his whole address was on the challenge that we're going to have going forward regarding religious liberty. And now you're seeing people refer to religious freedom as religious privilege, that you're exercising your privilege as opposed to your right.
Right. Yeah.
It's an amazing thing now that, it's like white privilege or something. It's like now, you religious people want religious privilege. And so that's exactly, I think, what that woman was doing, was saying, look, the separation of church and state, you can't talk about this in a public building, totally diminishing a person's free speech, free association, let alone freedom of religion, free speech and free association. You can talk to whomever you want to about whatever you want to. And now she wants to get involved because you said two terrible words, Merry Christmas. That the bigotry is astounding out there, but that's a growing concern. And even Samuel Alito sees that as a real problem.
Well, let's talk about the 2021 Religious Freedom Day, because again, as you said earlier, it's January 16th, and it falls on a Saturday this year. So what can schools, churches, and people do to bring more attention to it, and especially in this time of COVID?
Well, it's a great opportunity for a civics lesson. So when we frame this for schools, you're not about promoting religion. I remember once sitting down with a group of school administrators, started talking about Religious Freedom Day, and you could see they were looking around, they were getting really nervous. And I said, what's the issue? And they said, well, okay, so what you're saying, we have to do an assembly, we have to bring in different religious leaders from the community, and all of them talk about their religion. And I said, no, this is not, that's wonderful that we have religious diversity, but this is not celebrate our religious diversity day. It's celebrate our religious freedom. It's a civics lesson. So you can just teach students the importance of religious freedom and what their religious freedoms are at school. Now you have an actual application for the religious freedoms that they have. You can teach them that right in school. So it's a civics lesson. You don't have to have an assembly, and you don't have to have different religious speakers come and all that sort of thing. And so it's happening on Saturday this year. So what you got to do is use the week leading up to it as a ramp up for these civics lessons. And then if you're in a church community and you want to acknowledge it, we have a website, Freedom Sunday. We have both religiousfreedomday.com and religiousfreedomsunday.com, and encourage you to go to those. So Religious Freedom Sunday would be the Sunday before Religious Freedom Day. That would be January 10th in 2021. And that's an opportunity for the church to simply acknowledge the importance of religious freedom, not take it for granted, and then make sure that every student, every parent, every teacher in your congregation understands the Department of Education's guidance on religious freedom. And we've actually put into a little pamphlet, we call it the Free to Speak pamphlet, and it's not our opinions. These are just quotations from the U.S. Department of Education to give them in brief form, but all quotes from the Department of Ed, what their religious freedoms are. We also have on our website a poster, 8.5 by 14, that teachers can download or they can print out. They can email it to their students and teach them what their religious freedoms are. In this age of COVID, we need to go more virtual, so we've made things available on our website.
So Eric, can you give that website again?
Sure. Our website is gogateways.org, and then the web page that deals with this, it'd be gogateways.org/free to speak.
All right. So we're going to take a break, but if you had a chance to take that down during this break, feel free to go to the site and then follow along with us so that you can learn more about this. And we're going to talk more about what it is that you can do to help your community, your school, your church, bring gateways to better education to you. So we'll be right back. Stay with us. You're listening to Answers for the Family.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and compassionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585, or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
And we're back. You're listening to or watching Answers for the Family, soon to be Answers Network. Our guest, Eric Buehrer, is the founder of Gateways to Better Education. And Eric, share with us a little bit about what people can do to make a difference now, how they can either get the word out or whatever it is that you need help with. Share with us now what they can do to get involved.
Well, the simplest thing they can do is simply go to our website and begin reading about students' religious freedom and download and use our materials at gogateways.org/free to speak. But also what we're doing around the country is we are wanting to raise up what we call advocates in 25 communities this year in 2021. We want to raise up 20 advocates in 25 communities. And those advocates would be volunteers to say, okay, I'm on board. I want to make this happen in my school. What do I do? And we're going to have them focus on three things. Number one, make sure everybody in their community is connected to these resources on what the Department of Education's guidance is. So they can either use our posters, they can use our pamphlets, distribute them through their churches, through their schools, through campus clubs, that sort of thing. We want every student, every teacher, every administrator to understand what students' religious freedoms are. Because I travel all over the country, of course, before COVID, and I'd speak to tons of teachers and I'd always ask them, have you ever seen this coming from the Department of Education? Because it's been out there since 1995. Nope, they haven't. And so we just got to get wide distribution. The other thing is, we then want those advocates to work on a network of teachers, and particularly Christian teachers, faith-friendly teachers, and administrators, begin creating a list and then connecting them to our resources, because we have all kinds of tools that they can use in their classroom to teach students about the importance of religious freedom, what those religious freedoms are for students, and also why the Bible and Christianity have been such forces for good in their world. And it's connected to academic standards. We've done research on every state's academic standards where the Bible and Christianity can be included. And people are amazed. For instance, here in California, the current academic standards for 6th grade, when they learn about that period of history, the Roman Empire and the birth of Christianity, the standard actually says students are to note the origins of Christianity and the Jewish messianic prophecies, the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, as described in the New Testament, and how the Apostle Paul helped define and spread Christian beliefs. And then it puts in parentheses, for example, belief in the Trinity, resurrection, and salvation. Every 6th grader in California is expected to know that as part of their history lessons. And so we have tools to help schools do that, help teachers do that. So number one, get the information out to everybody about their rights. Number two, get teachers connected to our resources so they can begin using them in the classroom. And number three, get your school board to adopt a policy that aligns with the federal guidance on religious freedom so that you have the protections from the school board. School boards just don't want lawsuits. They don't want trouble. So simply say, look, let's get this tuned up so it aligns with the Department of Education's guidance. That'll help avoid lawsuits and problems. Meanwhile, we want all the teachers to understand this so they don't have issues of discrimination in their classrooms. And we want everybody to understand what their rights are. So advocates work on those three things. And so again, if you're interested in becoming an advocate, go to our website and you go to that page, Free to Speak, and you'll be able to then say, hey, I'm interested. I want to know more about becoming an advocate in my community. Like I said, we want to reach 25 communities in 2021 and substantially change the way students are treated, the way religion is treated, and really promote freedom.
Yes, that's good, Eric. I want to just add to that. I see one layer that as you talk about school boards and teachers, and that I think another major effort, I call it middle line management, or the administrators.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's when you start looking at each school site independently, and teachers may have the zeal and the fervor to really want to do and have the passion, but then they're not going to the school board because, you know, well, you understand as a former teacher, you have those administrators at the schools that are really the gatekeepers of what, you know, what happens, because in the end of the day, you know, their concern is meeting state standards, educational standards, versus these skills that, you know, for social development, which is important.
Well, we have a strategy to help reach those administrators. Obviously, when they're reaching out to, you know, the advocates are reaching out and we help them organize within the local church community. So they get churches involved with this. So you've got church leaders communicating with school leaders, but also we have a collaboration with Alliance Defending Freedom, the religious freedom organization with over 3,000 attorneys around the country. And they have agreed that when we have advocates working in a community, then we can collect the names and addresses of the school officials, their school addresses, of all the school officials in that community. We send that on to ADF. They then send a 6-page letter from an attorney personalized to that school official to say, here's what students and teachers' religious freedoms are, and they approach it from a legal court case, case law. So I'm trying to say. Yeah, from case law. And so then they go through all the different Supreme Court cases, and it's a Q&A sort of format. So can a teacher do this? Yes, and here's what the law says, and here's what the court cases have been. So you've got the ground game with the Free to Speak materials going out to students and teachers and parents and churches. And then ADF also then sends a letter to the school leaders and those administrators throughout the community so that everybody's understanding this and even getting it from an attorney, and that will get their attention.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I can say, speaking from experience, as a charter school founder and administrator, and then I actually, for location of our school was actually on the grounds of a church, and then being ordained. So you can only imagine the fight that I was fighting for the best interests of the kids, the community, and fighting for what's right, even in education, coming to the table and bringing some nuances that were outside of traditional standards of academia, but more based on neuroscience, and looking at how to inculcate learning and supporting these kids in these underserved communities. And I can tell you, Eric, it was a dog fight. But I'm one of those guys. I guess I was built for it. As a former linebacker, I said, that old saying was, once I bit that bone, I wasn't letting go. But it was daunting. It was really daunting because I had to fight every day about, are you teaching religion? Are you doing this? And I had teachers coming in and challenging me, right? And I'm like, I'm the creator. I created the school, and my wife and I, and the administrators, and you're, challenging. Yeah. So it was just, so I really, what you're sharing, man, this would have been great to have this information years ago to be able to have these advocates come in and help speak on my behalf, since I couldn't do it directly, right?
Yeah.
This is great information. The other thing I just want to say real quick, I think it's apropos now I'm looking at the date for religious freedom, and the reason January 16th, because 2 weeks later, the first Thursday of every year since 1953, we have the National Prayer Breakfast, where you have over 140 countries coming together, 160 countries coming together, all the delegates, and having a chance for a week of activities and one day for the National Prayer Breakfast to really speak about, religious freedom, and have these hierarchical individuals have the opportunity to go back to their countries and really start to try to implement policy and change for human rights. So I can see now, this Religious Freedom Day leads right into that. Here it is in our own country. And what does that look like on a global basis? So I just saw the tie there.
And there's another tie, and that is that on January 18th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yes. And all schools recognize that. And so we encourage schools to connect it with religious freedom, because the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was free to exercise his religious faith, which motivated him on all of his civil rights actions. Yes. And so if he didn't have that religious freedom, then he wouldn't be able to do the things that he did for the civil rights movement. So you can tie those two things together and emphasize religious freedom as well as Martin Luther King's civil rights actions.
Yes, that's good.
So we have another comment and question that has come in. This one reads, what a great news item. Why haven't we heard anything about Religious Freedom Day before this? I belong to a Baptist church of about 900 people, and I just emailed our pastor to tell him we need to ask all of our members to spread the word. I feel this is a perfect way to launch 2021 with a new way of thinking about our family values, the preciousness of our freedom to practice our faith, and the future we want for our coming generations. Thank you so very much for this wonderful reminder. And this is from Gina in Georgia.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Gina, I'd encourage you to also then go to religiousfreedomsunday.com, where we've set up a website for churches. Then they can download materials there and video and so forth. And then religiousfreedomday.com, which schools can use and anyone can use, that promotes Religious Freedom Day. And then, of course, the gogateways.org/free to speak to find out what you could do in Georgia, in your whole community, to fundamentally change the way that the schools approach the issue of religious freedom and the Bible and Christianity in their curriculum.
I love it. And for everybody out there, again, if you're hearing this right now, if you're driving, don't try to write all this down. We will put everything on the website at answersforthefamily.com. We'll put all of these websites that you can go to, or you can listen to the show again and hear it again while you share it with everybody else that you're going to share it with.
Yes. And Alan, I would like to say, since we're talking about go viral, they can see the show again and then pass it on to as many people as possible, because I really believe this is valuable information and everybody needs to hear it. Everybody needs to know it. And, and like I said earlier, the Bible talks about my people perish for lack of knowledge. The more we can make people knowledgeable of their rights, their spiritual rights that are human rights, the better the better society will be. And it takes me back to when I think about the church and being, an ordained minister, is like, what's the whole value? Going back to the essence of the nuclear family, and I got to say this just for caveat that when I think about not long ago, we looked about, if I look at the African-American community, 20, 30 years ago, 30, 25%, 30% of the father wasn't in the household. And today we're looking almost 75% of the head of the household is a female. And that's exactly what we're talking about, attacking the nuclear family, because if the nuclear family, which God intended it to have as a foundation, he says, be fruitful and multiply. If we're not able to do that, then it's destroying the whole fabric of what this country is built on.
Yeah, so true. And we need parents, we need churches to understand the importance of what happens Monday through Friday in this other place where all their kids are. The vast majority of church attending families send their kids to public schools, and they're there much longer than they are at church. And so we need to have the kind of community there within the school that really is supportive of the family and supportive of those values. And it can be done. It's not something that, you're asking the schools to do something that violates the separation of church and state. No, not at all. In fact, people are shocked when they realize just how much our schools can teach these things and can teach these values. And so often we think that they can't. And unfortunately, the church, by and large, has abandoned the public schools, thinking, they're hopeless. And they're not. And most of your children are going there. So you need to get engaged.
And then on a last note for me on that, Eric, is that, kind of being in this space and place when I looked at, or even to the point where the church, as the institution, not understanding the rights is people would ask me, well, Marvin, why don't you just you did a phenomenal job, something very unique in the charter school world, public. Why would you even want to deal with that? Why don't you do a private school? I go, there's a lot of factors. We should be able to have this in public space. That's the true fight.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. And Eric, one of the things, and again, people that listen to the show, they comment on a lot of things. One of the things that they comment on is they love the fact that I bring up about success stories. So can you share a couple of success stories? We've got about 4 minutes left. A couple of your favorite success stories where bringing this information has lit people up and got people so involved that it just makes us all want to get excited.
Well, I'll give you a story that comes to mind right away, and it's here in Southern California. A teacher went through our online professional development program. We have an online program that teaches all of this. It's used in universities around the country. We've run almost 20,000 students through it as they become teachers. And so this teacher went through our program and learned all that she could do and how she could create a more faith-friendly environment. And she's a second grade teacher, and she decided there was an assignment they were to do. The students were to do an oral report on one of their heroes. And one of her students, little Olivia, who was a Christian, decided she wanted to do her hero as Jesus. And now because Shirley went through our program, she realized perfectly fine. That's actually a wonderful thing, and I'll affirm it, and no problem. Well, little Olivia, and she sent us a picture, dressed up as Jesus. She had long brown hair. She even drew a little beard on her face, and she had a placard behind her showing the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, and was able to share all about what Jesus meant to her. And Shirley said, it really changed the tone of the classroom after that. Other Christian students felt more at ease to talk about their faith and what they did on Sunday and that sort of thing. They started bringing their children's Bibles to read during free reading time. And she said it really changed the climate, the behavioral climate of the classroom as well. Students were better behaved. It just was a different atmosphere after that. It was because Shirley was affirming students' religious faith as an important asset in their life. And the research shows that the religious faith of a student is an asset both academically and behaviorally. So I tell teachers, if you're leaving this out of the classroom, you're leaving an academic and behavioral asset off the table. Why would you do that? And so that's just one story that comes to mind of the kinds of things that can happen in a school when teachers teach about these things.
You know, you just mentioned where you said that you're educating them on some of the things that they can do, specifically teachers or administrators.
Yeah.
I think that from what you have said, it isn't even just what they can do. Isn't in some situations, it's what they're required to do.
Yes. Well, when it comes to social studies, most states, they don't have state testing on social studies. They test math, they test science, they test reading. And so teachers have more flexibility. However, if you look at their state's academic standards, and particularly here in California, it's very specific what students are expected to learn at certain grade levels. And so when teachers want to teach these things, what I advise them to do is just make a copy of the state standard and put it at the bottom of the worksheet. If that goes home and parents are going, well, why are they addressing this topic? Oh, I see. They're fulfilling this standard right here in the California Department of Education's standards guidelines. And so, like I said, we've done research on every state in the country. If your listeners, your viewers want to contact us, go to our website. We actually have, if you look up the Bible and State Academic Standards, do a search on our site, you'll come to a page where you can give us your contact information. We'll mail you our research on your state's academic standards where the Bible and Christianity are expected to be taught. You'd be shocked at what is out there.
I love that. Marvin, any closing points? We've got about 30 seconds or so.
Closing points. Eric, thank you for your time. And now that I'm listening, you're a SoCal guy. I definitely want to reach out because I think there's some resource-wise, some crossover here, and some folks I'd probably like to connect you with as well. And I just want to say, keep up the good work. And one thing, my last note is, I love it too, because when you start to look at interfaith as a Christian, or I call it a follower of Christ, that when you can interact with other religions and then have a dialogue that is healthy, without antagonizing and separation, because that's where all this fear comes in, to start to come together and going, what are the different, and become students of the scriptures. People's lives change, and I've seen other religions. I've seen change in that space when people are able to come together. Thank you.
Yeah, and Eric, and it's the same for me, is thank you so much. I just really want to acknowledge and thank you for what it is that you're doing. I thought I was fairly well informed in this, and then I sat at a lunch and listened to you speak, and I thought there's so much that I don't know, and I love the fact that you are bringing this out to people. So again, thank you so much. And if there's anything else that we can do, please just let us know.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you both.
All right.
Alan, I got to say this in closing. You didn't know that you're the finder of answers. That's an international detective with a heart for helping people. And you didn't know this?
Exactly. That's
you
why
gotta start doing some more finding.
That's why I do research. And so for everybody out there, as Marvin mentioned earlier, we're evolving into the Answers Network. So send in your questions that you would like answered, or topics that you would like us to dig deeper into, and we will do the best we can to bring them to you, either with a guest like we have done now, or just get the answers ourselves. So, and along those lines, tune in next Monday for our interview with Carl David Blake. He's the co-author with Gary Stewart of Quantum Activation, Transforming Obstacles into Opportunities. And in this interview, we will discuss why reality is subject to revision and how people can expand their viewpoints and enter into the storage bank of infinite possibilities to make their dreams come true. And so for everybody out there, please visit our archives of past interviews. And right now it's going to be at answersforthefamily.com. We're going to keep that name, even though we've now taken on Answers Network. And you can subscribe to our show through iTunes, through iHeartRadio, Stitcher, YouTube, Spreaker, Instagram, and SoundCloud. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review. It'll help us reach more people, and I want you to know we greatly appreciate it. Next time you're on Facebook or Twitter, please remember to stop by our page, check out some of our latest posts. If you like them, please like us and continue to spread the word. So for everybody out there, be good human beings and be with us again next week on Answers for the Family. Marvin, have a great week.
I'm excited, Alan, because now we can go deeper.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, buddy.
You too.
You're listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoza, right here on LA Talk Radio.